All right, here's solutions to quiz 9 for Math 95. On this quiz, we're given 3 problems and asked to complete the square to solve each of these. Some of these you can solve without completing the square. Maybe we'll do that to check our answer later. But what you want to do when you're completing the square, or the way I like to do it, is I start by putting these brackets around the x squared and the x terms, just to kind of emphasize, just to keep things straight in my head, what numbers are going where. This might seem like an unnecessary step, but I think when things get more complicated later, when you do more advanced versions of this, it might be helpful to have that. So anyways, I put these brackets around here. The minus 12 equals 0 is outside of these brackets. I'm not dealing with that at all. That just hangs out here. But what I want to do is write what I have in the brackets here in another form in the brackets down here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the coefficient in front of my x term, this 4 right here, and cut it in half to get 2. And I'm going to write x plus 2 squared. The reason I chose that, maybe this is some justification to do off to the side, is if you FOIL out x plus 2, if you do x plus 2 times x plus 2, what you get is x squared plus 4x plus 4. I'll leave that for you to work out on your own. But what this is saying here is that I want to have x squared plus 4x. That's what I had inside the brackets up here. X plus 2 squared has x squared and it has 4x, which is really nice. The advantage of this lower form here is I only wrote the letter x once, which will be helpful later on. So up here I got x plus 4x. Down here I got, up here I have x squared plus 4x. Down here I have x squared plus 4x plus 4. I need what's in the brackets up here to be the same as what's in the brackets down here, so I have to subtract 4. Do that in the same color. So this right here is the main step. If you can talk yourself through this, I mean, the shortcut way to do it is just half of this number goes here. Half of positive 4 is positive 2. And then you always subtract this number squared. 2 squared is 4. But really the reason why that works is this justification out here. Anyways, now that we've completed the square, we don't need those brackets anymore. They were just to help us keep straight what's supposed to be equal to what. So negative 4 and negative 12 is negative 16. And now that we just have the letter x written once, it's easier to solve. X plus 2 squared equals 16. Take the square root of both sides. Be a little bit careful when you take the square root. You have to put plus or minus in there. So we get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4. Let's see, negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. Negative 2 plus 4 is positive 2. So what we did is we solved this. You could check this answer. Maybe I'll write this over here. You could check this answer a few ways. You could plug these numbers back in here and make sure it works. Or another way we had of solving this was we could factor. We need two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to positive 4. That's x plus 6 times x minus 2. So that gives us x equals negative 6 and positive 2. So in fact, we did get our right answers. Okay, now we're going to repeat that a few more times. Go a little bit quicker through these next two. Let's see, we're completing the square. So I want to put brackets around the x squared term and the x term. And then I'm going to write that down here. So outside of the brackets I have this plus 7 equals 0. Don't have to worry about that. In here I'm going to write x. And I'm going to have something, and I'm going to square it. Negative 6 is the coefficient in front of the x term. So half of that would be negative 3. And negative 3 squared is 9. So it's 9 that I'm going to subtract here. Now we're done completing the square. So the brackets aren't doing anything for us. Let's see, negative 9 plus 7 is minus 2. So you get x minus 3 squared equals 2. Take the square root of both sides. Make sure you put in the plus or minus. Square root of 2 doesn't have a nice form like we had up here. It's this irrational number. We'll just write it as square root of 2. So our answer will be x equals 3 plus or minus root 2. This one you would not be able to factor like the first one. We could because of this root 2 that we ended up with in our answer. So this is one way to illustrate why you might need completing the square. All right, the last one, same idea. put brackets around the x squared and the 8x. And then I write those brackets down here. We got that plus 17 on the outside here equals 0. And then what I write inside these brackets has to be equal to these brackets. I can get there by cutting this 8 in half and putting it here to get x plus 4. And then subtracting this number squared, which is 16. And again, the reason that works is because x plus 4 squared is x squared plus 8x plus 16. If we subtract 16, we got x squared plus 8x plus 16 minus 16, which is x squared plus 8x. Alright, now we're done completing the square. We don't need the brackets anymore. We get here, you subtract 1 from both sides. You take the square root of both sides, and you get x plus 4 equals, make sure you put in the plus or minus, square root of negative 1. Since we're dealing with complex numbers, we can take the square root of negative 1. We use the symbol I to represent that. So we got x plus 4 equals plus or minus I. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus I. That is, x is negative 4 plus I or negative 4 minus I. So those are the solutions. I guess that's the end of this quiz.